The real Eminem never made it out. That line gets attributed to Dr. Dre. And the reason it sticks is simple. It sounds like a conclusion someone reached after watching something unfold for a long time. The words feel chosen carefully. There's no exaggeration in them. When someone like Dre speaks, people listen differently. His reputation is built on controlled timing and precision. So when he says something like that, it doesn't come across as philosophy or reflection. It lands like a report, like a fact he's already accepted. To understand how something could fail to make it out, you first have to see the place that decides what gets out in the first place. Entering the machine. The studio around Dre at peak power doesn't feel chaotic. It feels controlled. Every wall tells you who matters. Gold records enforce hierarchy. They remind everyone why decisions flow in one direction. Late nights are normal. Silence is normal. Long gaps between conversations don't feel awkward because nobody expects emotional exchange. Reputations are protected quietly. Mistakes don't get discussed. Questions don't get asked unless they solve a problem. Everyone knows where they sit without needing it explained. That's how the system stays efficient. Fame inside this space works like infrastructure. It's always there. It supports everything. No one stops to admire it because it's already built into the floor. That's the environment where Eminem operates. When he enters a room, he doesn't announce himself. There's no visible command. People don't rush. They adjust. Conversations shorten. Movements slow slightly. It's subtle, but it's consistent. He's physically present. He shows up. He works. He records. But his presence doesn't fill the room. It leaves gaps. People orbit him carefully, like there's an invisible boundary nobody wants to cross. No one treats him like a peer. No one treats him like a boss. There's a distance that doesn't match his status. That distance isn't fear. It's uncertainty. In public, Eminem is intensity, precision, and control. Inside the studio, the energy feels muted, not calm, muted, like something is turned down internally while the work continues at full volume. He doesn't linger after sessions. He doesn't engage in idle talk. When the work pauses, he doesn't replace it with anything else. He waits, sometimes in silence, sometimes staring at nothing in particular. People notice this without commenting on it. The machine doesn't reward observation. It rewards output. Hierarchy plays a role here. Dre's presence defines the center. Everyone else moves around that center based on function. Eminem exists within that structure, but not comfortably inside it. He fits in terms of results, not in terms of connection. There's no room in this environment for unpacking personal shifts. The schedule keeps moving. The sessions keep stacking. The expectation stays the same, regardless of how anyone feels. That's how absence becomes invisible. When someone stops showing up emotionally, but continues delivering professionally, the system accepts it without friction. Over time, that absence becomes familiar. People stop noticing it because nothing breaks. The music still gets made. Deadlines still get hit. The machine keeps proving itself right. The real shift doesn't happen during sessions or performances. It shows up after the work stops, when the room empties and behavior no longer has an audience. The first signs. Something is wrong. It starts with timing. Questions land and answers come a beat late. Not confused, not wrong, just delayed. Like the response has to travel a longer distance than it used to. In a fast studio environment, people notice rhythm instinctively. When someone's internal rhythm shifts, It stands out without anyone naming it. During downtime, his tone flattens. When there's no verse to deliver or hook to refine, the energy drains away instead of settling. Work habits turn mechanical. He shows up on time, he follows process, he does what's needed. There's no chaos in it. That's what makes it easy to miss. The work still meets the standard, the output still holds weight, nothing obvious breaks. Then there's the silence. Long stretches where he says nothing at all. Not because he's focused, not because he's resting. He simply goes quiet. He stays present physically, but mentally he drifts somewhere else. None of this raises alarms on its own. Plenty of artists withdraw during intense periods. Plenty of people conserve energy when the workload is heavy. Inside a studio like this, withdrawal can look like professionalism. The discomfort comes from accumulation. These moments stack on top of each other. The delayed reactions, the flat tone, the mechanical repetition, the silence that lingers longer each time. What makes it noticeable is when performance pressure disappears, when the mic is off and the room thins out. Something changes. The intensity that shows up on tracks doesn't carry over. There's no release after the work, no visible satisfaction, no frustration either. Just a kind of inward collapse. Crowds and cameras usually pull energy outward. Without them, his posture shifts, shoulders lower, his gaze drifts. He stops anchoring himself to anything in the room. People around him don't comment on this. They adapt. They shorten interactions. They give space. The machine keeps running and no one wants to slow it down by asking questions that don't have clear answers. What's happening underneath is subtle. Output and identity start moving in different directions. The work continues upward. The person seems to recede. It doesn't look like burnout. Burnout usually leaks into performance. Here, performance stays intact. That's what allows everything else to go unnoticed. The version of Eminem that exists during execution still functions perfectly. The version that exists when execution stops feels thinner each time. These shifts become harder to ignore after midnight, when the sessions stretch on and there's no one left to perform for. After the music stops, late nights strip everything down. The studio empties. Conversations stop looping. The only sounds left are equipment hums and the occasional playback. This is where patterns either reset or reveal themselves. Eminem keeps working. He repeats takes with precision. Same cadence, same delivery. The words land where they should. From the outside, nothing seems wrong. From inside the room, something feels absent. There's no visible emotional engagement during these repetitions. No frustration when a line misses. No satisfaction when it hits. He moves through the process like it's already mapped out. Autopilot takes over. His eyes stay open, but they don't track much. Sometimes they lock onto the glass. Sometimes they drift past reflections instead of into them. He doesn't adjust posture between takes. He doesn't stretch or reset. He just continues. Creativity keeps flowing. Lyrics still form, verses still connect. The machine inside him continues to produce. Presence doesn't keep up. This is where the idea becomes hard to ignore. The persona operates independently. The structure built around him keeps functioning without needing his full participation. Music still gets made. Deadlines still get met. Nobody has to step in. That separation is what makes it unsettling. The system no longer requires the whole person. It only needs the parts that deliver. When a take ends, there's no decompression, no small talk, no visible shift back into self. He stays in the same state, waiting for the next instruction or cue. People who witness this don't intervene, not because they don't care, but because intervention doesn't fit the environment. The work isn't failing. The product isn't slipping. In places like this, success becomes proof that everything is fine. Late nights magnify this because there's nothing left to hide behind. No crowd energy, no external momentum, just repetition and silence. That's when it becomes clear that the persona doesn't shut off. It stays active even when it's no longer needed. Meanwhile, the person behind it doesn't step forward to replace it. The gap widens again. He finishes a session and doesn't linger. He doesn't unwind. He exits the same way he entered, quietly, efficiently. Observers start noticing patterns they can't quite articulate. They don't say he seems different. They say he seems distant. They say he's hard to read. They say nothing feels wrong, but something feels off. And the longer these nights repeat, the more normalized it becomes. Conversations that were never meant to be heard. The first time it happens, it's easy to dismiss. It's late. The studio is quiet in the way only empty workspaces get. Machines hum, lights stay on because no one bothered turning them off. Someone is packing cables or grabbing a jacket, moving slowly so they don't break the calm. And then there's a voice. At first, it sounds like thinking out loud. People do that all the time after long hours. But the words don't trail off. They repeat. They circle the same idea again and again. I can't get out. Sometimes it's about being stuck. Sometimes about not knowing how to stop. Sometimes about not recognizing the situation anymore. The phrasing changes slightly, but the theme stays the same. The words don't ask for help. They don't look for solutions. They don't even sound hopeful. They sound like observations someone makes after giving up on changing the outcome. I'm still here. I don't know how this ends. I can't leave this. The most disturbing part is how consistent the language stays. Different nights, different hours, same phrases, same tone, like a loop that never resets. The language points inward. It's about being trapped inside something that no longer feels chosen. There's no mention of charts, sales, or expectations. The concern isn't falling short. The concern is permanence. That's the difference. Pressure fatigue talks about rest. Identity erosion talks about disappearance. When someone says they're tired, there's an implied solution. Sleep, time off, distance. When someone says they can't get out, there's no clear fix attached to it. The voice sounds older than it should, slower, like it's been repeating the same thoughts for a long time without resolution. At some point, people stop thinking of these moments as incidents. They start seeing them as part of the environment. Another late-night artifact. Another thing you don't address directly. The code everyone uses. No one in that circle speaks plainly about it, not because they don't notice, because they do. The language changes first. Conversations shorten. Names get replaced with pronouns. Direct statements turn into half lines that rely on context. He's dealing with it. It's heavy right now. He can't escape it. Everyone understands what it means. No one defines it. This kind of coded speech doesn't develop overnight. It forms when saying things directly becomes dangerous. Dangerous to careers. Dangerous to momentum. Dangerous to the machine that depends on everything staying functional. Inside this environment, clarity threatens stability. When Dr. Dre speaks, people listen carefully to what he avoids as much as what he says. He doesn't deny anything. He doesn't explain. He uses phrases that signal awareness without opening discussion. He's carrying a lot. We keep moving. It's not something we talk about. That last one matters. Not talking about it becomes policy. Not written, not announced, understood. Protecting the brand and protecting the person merge into the same objective. If the output stays strong, the system treats silence as care. Intervention feels like risk. There's an unspoken calculation happening. Addressing the issue might slow things down. Slowing things down might cause cracks elsewhere. Cracks invite attention. Attention invites narratives no one can control. So the safer option becomes containment. Schedules stay tight. Sessions stay professional. Anything personal stays out of the workflow. The structure absorbs the strain. People convince themselves this is responsible. Giving space, not pushing. Letting things settle, but nothing is settling. The coded language creates distance. It removes urgency. If you don't name something, you don't have to solve it. If you don't solve it, you don't disrupt the system. Disappearance of Marshall. At some point, the name stops coming up. Not in meetings, not in side conversations, not in jokes. People still say Eminem all the time. They say M. They say the brand. They say the artist. But Marshall slowly drops out of the language. No one announces this shift. It happens naturally. Names reflect closeness, and closeness starts thinning long before anyone admits it. When people stop using a first name, it signals distance without needing explanation. Old footage tells a different story. Early interviews show someone curious, alert, and visibly present. He leans forward when people speak. He listens closely. He smiles easily. There's a softness there that doesn't need to be explained. It shows up in posture and timing, not words. That version asks questions. He jokes without sharpening the punchline. He reacts to the room instead of controlling it. Those traits don't vanish overnight. They fade. As the years move forward, the sharpness increases. Delivery tightens. Control becomes dominant. The persona grows more exact, more defined, more reliable. Meanwhile, the small human markers disappear. Curiosity stops showing up. Reactions shorten. The space between stimulus and response shrinks until everything sounds rehearsed, even when it isn't. People who've been around long enough notice this quietly. They don't say he changed. They say he's focused. They say he's locked in. They say he's evolved. Those words help avoid the harder realization. There's no single moment where Marshall exits the picture. No breaking point. No public collapse. No line you can draw on a timeline. The person fades gradually, while the persona sharpens. That's the key detail. When something fades, people adapt. When something sharpens, it draws attention. The world rewards sharpness. It notices precision. It amplifies control. So the persona keeps getting fed. More exposure, more expectation, more reinforcement. Marshall doesn't receive the same reinforcement. There's no system designed to protect him. There's no incentive to slow down and ask where he went. Inside the studio, this absence becomes normalized. New collaborators never meet Marshall at all. They meet the finished product, the fully formed identity. To them, there's nothing missing. For people who remember the early days, the loss feels harder to name. They don't grieve it. They adjust around it. They stop referencing old versions. They stop bringing up past behavior. They focus on what's in front of them. That's how erasure works without intention. No one decides to erase a person. The system simply stops making room for them. Over time, the persona stops being something worn. It becomes the default state. The person underneath doesn't get air. When people talk about Eminem now, they talk about output, discography, impact, legacy. They don't talk about who he is when nothing is being produced. That question stops making sense in a space where value is tied to delivery. Marshall doesn't disappear dramatically. He becomes irrelevant to the process. And once someone becomes irrelevant to a system, the system doesn't go looking for them. That's why the disappearance goes unnoticed for so long. Nothing stops working. Everything keeps moving.